The first gunshot nearly drowned out the fiddle music when Olivia Raines ducked behind the wooden pillar, her wedding veil still pinned haphazardly to her upswept hair. Through the haze of tobacco smoke and dust motes dancing in the lantern light, she watched her intended husband collapse into the punch bowl, crimson blooming across his pristine white shirt, another victim of her family's cursed fortune. "Everybody down," shouted the town sheriff, but his warning came too late as another shot splintered the wood inches from Olivia's face. Her breath caught in her throat as strong arms suddenly encircled her waist, pulling her deeper into the shadows of the Sweetwater dance hall. She didn't resist. She'd seen enough death tonight to last a lifetime. "Keep your head down, miss," came a low, steady voice against her ear. "I'll get you out of here." Olivia glanced up to see a tall figure in trail-worn chaps and a dust-covered hat. The man's face was partially obscured by a bandana pulled up against the chaos, but his eyes were startlingly clear blue as a mountain lake and just as deep. She'd never seen him before, which in a town the size of Sweetwater, Wyoming Territory in 1878, was unusual enough to note even amid gunfire. "My fiancé," she stammered, though the words felt hollow. Thomas Blackwell had been her father's business partner, not her choice. "He's gone, madam, nothing to be done now." The stranger's bluntness carried no cruelty, only truth. Outside, horses whinnied and more shots rang out as the sheriff's men exchanged fire with the attackers. The stranger guided Olivia through the back door of the dance hall, his hand firm but gentle at the small of her back. "Name's Preston Daley," he said as they slipped into the alleyway behind the building. "Most folks call me Press." "Olivia Raines," she managed, gathering the torn edges of her wedding dress to keep from tripping as they hurried through the mud. "Though I suppose I'm still just Miss Raines now." The corner of Press's mouth twitched upward as he dropped the bandana from his face. "Miss Raines, I'd say I'm pleased to meet you, but these aren't the circumstances I'd have chosen." In the silver moonlight, she could see him clearly for the first time. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 25 or 26, with a weathered face that spoke of long days under the western sun. A thin scar traced his jawline, disappearing beneath the collar of his shirt. "Are you with the sheriff's office?" she asked, noticing the Colt revolver holstered at his hip. "No, madam, just passing through, heading north with a cattle drive, stopped in Sweetwater for supplies when all hell broke loose." He glanced back toward the dance hall where the gunfire had subsided into shouting. Those men weren't random bandits, they knew who they were after. Olivia felt her stomach knot. "Thomas, he had enemies. My father's mining business has been prosperous and there are always those who resent success." Press nodded grimly. "Well, they'll be looking for you next. Thomas's bride would fetch a fine ransom from your father, I reckon." "I can't go home," she realized aloud, the full weight of her situation crashing down. "They'll look there first." "My thoughts exactly." Press removed his hat briefly to run a hand through his sandy-colored hair. "My camp's outside town. You'll be safe there until morning, then I can take you somewhere more permanent." Olivia hesitated, very aware that following a stranger into the wilderness went against everything she'd been taught about propriety. But the distant shouts growing louder made her decision easier. "I'm obliged for your help, Mr. Daley." "Press," he corrected, leading her toward a hitching post where a sturdy buckskin horse stood waiting. "And I haven't helped you yet, Miss Raines." He helped her mount, her wedding dress bunching awkwardly as she settled side saddle. Press swung up behind her, one arm securely around her waist as he took the reins with his free hand. "Hold tight," he murmured, and then they were galloping away from Sweetwater, the cool night air whipping Olivia's veil behind them like a ghost of the life she was leaving behind. Press's camp was simple but well organized, nestled in a small grove of cottonwoods near a creek. Two other men were there, both raising eyebrows at the sight of a woman in a wedding dress riding double with their companion. "Boys, this is Miss Raines," Press said by way of introduction as he helped her down. "She's had some trouble in town." Miss Raines, this is Hank and Tobias, the most trustworthy men I know. And the ugliest, added Hank, a grizzled man with a spectacular white beard. He tipped his hat politely. Madam, Tobias, younger and more reserved, simply nodded in greeting. There was shooting at the dance hall, Press explained. Her fiancé was killed. Looks targeted, not random. Blackwell mining interests, Tobias asked quietly. Olivia's head jerked up. You know of my father's business. Everyone between here and Denver knows the Blackwell Raines silver operation, Tobias said. And that there's been trouble with claim jumpers and rival companies. Rival companies with guns, apparently, Olivia said bitterly. Hank cleared a space near the fire and offered her a blanket to sit on, mindful of her dress. Sorry about your loss, madam, but you're safe here. As the night deepened, Olivia found herself watching Press as he moved about the camp, checking the horses, speaking quietly with his men. There was an effortless competence to him that she found reassuring. He caught her eye occasionally, offering small smiles that sent an unexpected warmth through her despite her grief and shock. It wasn't grief for Thomas, she realized with a pang of guilt. They had been engaged only 2 months, an arrangement made by her father for business purposes. Thomas had been kind enough but distant, 20 years her senior and widowed twice before. She mourned the violent end to a human life, not the loss of love. Here, Press said, returning to offer her a tin cup of coffee. It's not fancy, but it'll warm you. Thank you. She accepted the cup, their fingers brushing momentarily. For everything, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. He settled beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Why were you hiding? Before the shooting started, I mean. I noticed you behind that pillar, looking like you wanted to disappear. Olivia stared into her coffee. No one had asked her that before, not her father, not Thomas, not any of the wedding guests who'd seen her slip away from her groom's side. I was afraid, she admitted. Not of Thomas exactly, of disappearing. Becoming Mrs. Thomas Blackwell, my father's business partner's wife, with nothing of Olivia Raines left. Press's eyes reflected the firelight as he studied her. Sometimes disappearing is exactly what saves us. Is that what you're doing out here, disappearing? A rueful smile touched his lips. Something like that. I was a cavalry officer during the war. After, I couldn't settle back into city life. Too many ghosts, he shrugged. The open country has its own kind of peace. And dangers, she added, thinking of the gunmen. Life's full of those anywhere. At least out here you can see them coming. He took a sip of his coffee. We'll head north at first light. I have a friend who runs a trading post near the Powder River. You'll be safe there while we send word to your father. And if those men come looking. Press's expression hardened. Then they'll find more than they bargained for. Despite her exhaustion, Olivia slept fitfully that night, jerking awake from dreams of gunshots and falling bodies. Each time she found Press sitting nearby, keeping watch, his presence a silent reassurance that allowed her to drift back to sleep. Dawn broke crisp and clear over the Wyoming landscape. While Hank and Tobias broke camp, Press brought Olivia a set of clothes. They'll be big, he apologized, but they'll be easier to ride in then. He gestured at her now soiled wedding dress. Thank you. She took the bundle, which included a simple shirt, trousers, and a wool coat. I've never worn men's clothing before. First time for everything, Miss Raines. There was that small smile again, warm enough to reach his eyes. Press showed her to a secluded spot where she could change, standing guard with his back turned. The clothes smelled of wood smoke and leather, and though they hung loose on her frame, Olivia found them strangely liberating after the confines of her corset and heavy dress. When she emerged, Press seemed momentarily startled, his eyes widening slightly before he collected himself. You look. He cleared his throat, ready for the trail. Hank approached, leading a chestnut mare. Thought the lady might prefer her own mount for the journey. This is Penny. She's gentle but sure-footed. Do you ride, Miss Raines? Press asked. I do. She stepped forward to stroke the horse's velvet nose. Though my father only approved of side saddle. Well, Press said, eyes twinkling. "Your father isn't here to disapprove." With Hank and Tobias continuing south with the cattle, Press and Olivia set out northward, following the winding path of the creek. The day warmed quickly, the vast Wyoming sky stretching endlessly above them. For someone who had rarely left Sweetwater, the landscape was both intimidating and exhilarating. "How far to this trading post?" she asked as they stopped to water the horses around midday. "3 days, give or take." Press handed her a strip of dried beef. "Depending on weather and whether we see any sign of pursuit." Olivia glanced behind them at the empty trail. "Do you think they'll follow?" "Depends on how badly they want to hurt your father." Press's directness was jarring but somehow comforting in its honesty. "Or how much they think you know about the silver mine operations." "Very little," she admitted. "Father never discussed business with me. That was one reason for the marriage. Thomas would inherit everything since I'm just a daughter." Press frowned. "Some men don't recognize value when it's right in front of them." The compliment, subtle as it was, made her cheeks warm. "And you, Mr. Daley, what do you value?" "Loyalty, truth." He met her eyes steadily. "Freedom to choose your own path." "A rare luxury for women," she observed. "Shouldn't be." They rode in comfortable silence after that, the rhythm of the horses' hooves and the whisper of wind through the grass creating a peaceful backdrop to Olivia's tumultuous thoughts. She found herself watching Press the straight line of his shoulders, the confident way he sat his horse, how his eyes constantly scanned the horizon for signs of trouble. That night, they made camp in a sheltered hollow. Press built a small, nearly smokeless fire while Olivia laid out the bedrolls he'd packed. "We should reach the Big Horn Mountains tomorrow," he said, warming a pot of beans over the flames. "The trading post is on the other side." Olivia hugged her knees, watching the stars emerge overhead. "What will you do after you deliver me safely?" Press was quiet for a moment. "Haven't decided. Winter's coming. Might find work at one of the bigger ranches until spring. You don't have a home to return to," he smiled faintly. "Home's where I hang my hat, Miss Raines." "Olivia," she corrected him softly. "After all this, I think you've earned the right to use my given name." Their eyes met across the fire, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of boundaries shifting, of the world beyond Sweetwater opening up possibilities Olivia had never considered. "Olivia," he repeated, her name almost reverent on his lips. The following day brought a change in weather, dark clouds gathering over the mountains ahead. By mid-afternoon, fat raindrops began to fall, quickly turning into a steady downpour. "There's a line shack about an hour ahead," Press called over the sound of rain. "Used by cattle outfits during roundup. Should be empty this time of year." Olivia nodded, already soaked to the skin despite the coat. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and she could feel her body beginning to shiver. The shack, when they reached it, was little more than a one-room cabin with a stone fireplace, but to Olivia it looked like paradise. Press quickly got a fire going while she stood dripping by the door. "You need to get out of those wet clothes," he said practically, rummaging through his saddlebags. "I've got a spare shirt that should be long enough to," he stopped, seeming to realize the impropriety of the situation. "I'll wait outside while you change." "Don't be ridiculous," Olivia said, surprising herself with her boldness. "You'll catch pneumonia. Turn your back if propriety demands it, but stay by the fire." Press's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded and turned to face the wall, his shoulders tense. Olivia changed quickly, her fingers clumsy with cold as she peeled off the wet garments and slipped into his dry shirt. It fell to her mid-thigh, the sleeves hanging well past her fingertips. "I'm decent," she said when she'd finished. Press turned, his eyes inadvertently sweeping over her before he quickly looked away. He busied himself hanging their wet clothes near the fire. "You should get changed too," she pointed out, noticing how his shirt clung to his frame. He hesitated, then nodded, grabbing his own spare clothes. This time, Olivia turned her back, though the small cabin made privacy an illusion at best. She could hear the rustle of fabric, the soft thud of boots being removed. Her imagination filled in the rest, bringing a flush to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the fire's warmth. "All clear," Press said after a moment. The evening stretched before them, the rain drumming steadily on the roof. They shared a simple meal of jerky and hardtack, sitting close to the fire for warmth. As night fell, the small cabin seemed to shrink even further, making Olivia acutely aware of Press's presence, the clean scent of him beneath the lingering smell of rain, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way his hair curled slightly as it dried. "Tell me about your life before," Press said finally, breaking the companionable silence. "In Sweetwater," Olivia considered the question. "There isn't much to tell. My mother died when I was 14. After that, it was just father and me in that big house. I read books, practiced piano, helped with church socials, all the things a respectable young lady should do." "And is that what you wanted, to be respectable?" She smiled wryly. "I didn't know I could want anything else." Looking up, she found his eyes on her, thoughtful and warm. "What about you?" "Before the war, before the open country, Virginia," he said simply. "Oldest son of a moderately successful horse breeder, expected to take over the family business, marry the daughter of a neighboring farm, life all planned out." "What happened?" "The war." His expression clouded. "And after?" "Nothing was the same. My father's farm was burned, most of our horses confiscated. He died that first winter after Appomattox. My mother followed 6 months later." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. Press shrugged, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. "It was a long time ago. But it taught me that plans, even good ones, can disappear in an instant. Best to live each day as it comes." "Is that why you don't have a home? Because you're afraid of losing it again?" His gaze sharpened. "You're very direct for someone raised to be a respectable young lady." "Perhaps I'm not as respectable as I was raised to be," she replied with a small smile. "Perhaps that's not a bad thing." Outside, the storm intensified, wind howling around the cabin's corners. A particularly strong gust rattled the single window, making Olivia jump. "Just the wind," Press reassured her. "I know," she said, embarrassed by her reaction. "I'm not usually so skittish. You've had a shock. Your fiancé killed, gunmen after you, forced to flee with a stranger. Most people would be more than skittish." Olivia looked down at her hands. "That's just it. I feel terrible for Thomas. No one deserves to die that way, but I'm not. Heartbroken." She swallowed hard. "What kind of person does that make me?" Press moved closer, not quite touching her, but near enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "An honest one." "Were you in love with him?" "No," she whispered. "It was a business arrangement, but I agreed to it. I said yes when he proposed. Because it was expected of you." She nodded, tears threatening despite her best efforts. "My whole life has been about meeting expectations, and now." "Now you're free," Press said gently. "Terrible as the circumstances are, you've been given a chance. Many never get to decide your own path." Olivia looked up at him, struck by the understanding in his eyes. Without thinking, she reached out to touch his face, her fingers tracing the scar along his jaw. "How did you get this?" she asked softly. Press's breath caught, but he didn't pull away from her touch. "Cavalry skirmish near Richmond, Confederate saber. You were lucky." "Very," he agreed, his voice lower now, rougher. "Olivia." The way he said her name sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cold. She was acutely aware of how improper their situation was, alone in a cabin, dressed in his clothes, touching his face. Yet it felt more right than anything in her carefully ordered life. Press gently caught her hand, holding it against his cheek for a moment before lowering it. "We should get some sleep. Long ride tomorrow." The disappointment was sharp, though Olivia knew he was being honorable. "Yes, of course." They arranged their bedrolls on opposite sides of the small room, the fire between them casting long shadows on the walls. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded Olivia. She could hear Press's breathing across the room, not quite even enough to indicate slumber. "Press," she whispered finally. "Thank you for everything." There was a pause then. "Get some sleep, Olivia." Morning brought clear skies and renewed energy. Their clothes had dried overnight, though Olivia was secretly reluctant to return Press's shirt. As they prepared to leave, she noticed him watching her with a curious expression. "What is it?" she asked. He shook his head, smiling slightly. "Just thinking how different you look from the bride hiding her face at the dance hall." "I feel different," she admitted. "Less afraid, somehow." They reached the trading post by late afternoon the next day. It was larger than Olivia had expected, a substantial log building with several outbuildings, nestled in a valley on the eastern side of the Big Horn Mountains. A large man with an impressive mustache emerged as they rode up. "Preston Daley, as I live and breathe, thought you'd be halfway to Texas by now." "Change of plans, Walter," Press replied, dismounting and helping Olivia down. "We need your help." Walter's eyebrows rose as he took in Olivia's appearance, but he asked no questions as he ushered them inside. The trading post was warm and well-stocked, with a counter running along one wall and shelves of goods filling the rest of the space. "My wife's just put on stew," Walter said. "You two look like you could use a hot meal." Over dinner, Press explained the situation to Walter and his wife, Margaret, a kind-faced woman who immediately took Olivia under her wing. "You'll stay with us, of course," Margaret declared. "We have a spare room upstairs, and I have some dresses that might fit you with a bit of taking in." "I need to get word to her father," Press said. "Let him know she's safe." Walter nodded thoughtfully. "Army patrol comes through every couple of weeks. They're due tomorrow or the next day. They can carry a message to Sweetwater." "And if those gunmen tracked us?" Press asked. "Let them come," Walter said grimly, patting the shotgun mounted on the wall. "Been a while since we had any excitement around here." That evening, after Margaret had shown Olivia to a comfortable room with a real bed luxury after days on the trail, Olivia found Press outside on the trading post's porch, smoking a cigarette and staring at the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. "Will you leave once the patrol takes your message?" she asked, joining him at the railing. Press took a long drag before answering. "Seems the sensible thing. Your father will want to know you're safe. And if I don't want to go back," the words surprised her even as she spoke them. Press turned to look at her fully, his expression unreadable in the gathering dusk. "What are you saying, Olivia?" "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Only that these past few days have shown me there's a whole world beyond Sweetwater, beyond being someone's daughter or wife." "It's a hard world," he cautioned, "not always kind to women alone." "I wouldn't be alone," she said softly. "Would I?" The cigarette glowed as Press took another pull, buying time before he answered. "What are you asking me?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "I just know that when I think of going back to that life of another arrangement, another man chosen for me, I can't breathe." She stepped closer. "And when I'm with you, I feel—" "What?" His voice had roughened again the way it had in the cabin. "Alive," she whispered. For a moment, neither moved. Then Press carefully stubbed out his cigarette and turned to face her fully. "Olivia," he began, "you've been through a terrible shock. Your emotions don't do that," she interrupted. "Don't dismiss what I'm feeling as shock or confusion or feminine hysteria. I know my own mind." A small smile touched his lips. "I wouldn't dare suggest hysteria. I value my life too much." Despite herself, Olivia laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "Good." Press sobered, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch feather light. "I won't lie to you. Since that moment in the dance hall when I saw you hiding behind that pillar, something changed for me. But no buts," she said, placing her fingers against his lips. "Not tonight." He caught her hand again, this time bringing it to his lips for a gentle kiss that sent warmth cascading through her. "Your father might have something to say about his daughter running off with a penniless cowboy." "Then let him say it to my face," Olivia replied. "I'm done hiding." Press's eyes darkened, and this time when he leaned forward, it wasn't to kiss her hand. His lips met hers softly at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. Olivia had been kissed before chased, proper kisses from approved suitors, but nothing like this. This was heat and promise and possibility all wrapped in the scent of leather and tobacco. When they finally parted, both breathing harder, Press rested his forehead against hers. "We should go inside before Walter comes looking for us." Olivia nodded reluctantly. "Tomorrow, then." "We'll figure it out tomorrow." But tomorrow brought unexpected complications. Shortly after dawn, Walter burst into the trading post from his morning rounds, his expression grim. "Riders coming," he announced. 6 of them moving fast, armed. Press was on his feet immediately. "How far out?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Margaret appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "The root cellar," she said decisively. "Olivia can hide there." "And if they search the place?" Press asked. Walter reached for his shotgun. "They'll have to go through me first." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I won't have anyone else hurt because of me." Press turned to her, his expression intense. "Do you trust me?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Then follow my lead." He turned to Walter. "We need a wedding right now." Walter blinked. "Come again." "You're a justice of the peace, aren't you? For the county?" "Well, yes, but then marry us, before those men get here." Olivia's heart leaped into her throat. "Press, what are you if you're my wife?" he explained quickly. "They can't legally force you to return to your father. And they'll have to think twice about harming you." "It's a smart play," Walter admitted. "But are you sure? Marriage isn't something to enter into lightly." Press looked directly at Olivia. "I'm sure. But it has to be your choice, Olivia. I won't pressure you." Time seemed to slow as Olivia considered his words. This wasn't how she'd imagined marriage: rushed, pragmatic, potentially temporary. Yet as she looked into Press's eyes, she saw more than practicality there. She saw the same emotion that had been building in her own heart since that first night by the campfire. "Yes," she said finally. "I choose this. I choose you." The ceremony was brief, conducted in the main room of the trading post with Margaret and a bewildered customer as witnesses. Walter spoke the traditional words while Press and Olivia exchanged simple vows, their hands clasped tightly together. When Walter pronounced them husband and wife, Press's kiss was swift but tender, a promise for later, when danger wasn't approaching on horseback. "Now," Press said, turning to Walter, "we need to get ready for visitors." When the riders thundered into the trading post yard 20 minutes later, they found a seemingly ordinary scene: Walter behind the counter, Margaret sweeping the porch, and Press loading supplies onto a pack horse while his new wife watched from nearby. The leader of the group, a sharp-faced man with a distinctive eye patch, dismounted first. "We're looking for a woman," he announced without preamble. "Daughter of Henderson Raines from Sweetwater, might have passed this way." Walter affected ignorance. "Lots of folks pass through." "Can't say I recall anyone by that name." The man's gaze shifted to Olivia, who stood straight-backed beside Press, her hand resting on his arm. "And who might you be, madam?" Before Olivia could answer, Press stepped slightly forward. "This is my wife, Olivia Daley. We're just passing through on our way north." "Daley, is it?" The man's good eye narrowed. "Funny, we heard Raines's daughter might be traveling with a man named Daley." "Common enough name," Press said calmly. "But as you can see, my wife and I are just outfitting for our journey." "Your wife?" The man's tone made the word an accusation. "When did you marry?" "That's hardly your business, sir," Olivia said, finding her voice. "But if you must know, we were married 2 days ago. Here at the trading post, Mr. Stewart performed the ceremony." Walter nodded confirmation. "Signed the papers myself. Everything legal and proper." The man with the eye patch didn't look convinced. "I'd like to see these papers." "And I'd like to see your authority to demand them," Press countered, his hand drifting toward his holstered gun. Tension crackled in the air as the other riders shifted restlessly. Olivia felt her heart pounding, but she kept her expression calm, moving closer to Press in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. "We're associates of Thomas Blackwell," the leader finally said. "We have reason to believe his fiancé might be in danger." "Thomas Blackwell is dead," Olivia stated flatly. "Killed at our engagement party by men I suspect look very much like you." A flicker of surprise crossed the man's face, quickly masked. I don't know what you're talking about, madam. I think you do. She stepped forward, emboldened by Press's steady presence beside her. And I think you can tell whoever sent you that Olivia Raines no longer exists. My name is Olivia Daley now, and I have no interest in my father's silver mine or any other business dealings. The standoff continued for several tense heartbeats before the man with the eye patch finally shrugged. Seems we've wasted our time. He turned to remount his horse, then paused. Give your father my regards, Mrs. Daley. Tell him Parker Jensen always collects what he's owed. As the riders departed, Olivia sagged slightly against Press, the adrenaline leaving her system. You were magnificent, he murmured, his arm tightening around her waist. They'll be back, Walter warned, or others like them. Press nodded grimly, which is why we need to get moving. Canada might be our best option. Canada, Olivia echoed, unless you've changed your mind. There was uncertainty in Press's eyes now. The dangers passed for the moment. If you want to annul the marriage, return to your father. Olivia silenced him with a kiss, heedless of Walter and Margaret's presence. When she pulled back, Press looked slightly dazed. I meant what I said, she told him firmly. Olivia Raines no longer exists. I'm Olivia Daley now, and I go where my husband goes. Press's slow smile was like the sunrise. Even to Canada, she confirmed, though perhaps we might find somewhere a bit warmer eventually. Walter cleared his throat. Well, if you two lovebirds are done, there's still the matter of supplies for your journey, and Margaret's insisting you stay for a proper wedding dinner tonight. We accept, Press said, his eyes never leaving Olivia's face. Thank you. That evening, after a celebratory meal that rivaled any wedding feast Olivia could have had in Sweetwater, she found herself alone with Press for the first time since their hasty ceremony. Margaret had given them the largest guest room, decorated with wildflowers and lit by soft lamplight. So, Press said, closing the door behind them. Mrs. Daley, Mr. Daley, she returned, suddenly shy despite the intimacy they'd already shared. Press crossed to her slowly, as if giving her time to change her mind. When he reached her, he took her hands in his. I want you to know, he said seriously, that while our marriage began as a way to protect you, my feelings are real. I've never met anyone like you, Olivia. Nor I you, she whispered. When you found me at the dance hall, I was hiding from a future I dreaded. I never imagined that same night would lead me to a future I could choose. Press brought her hands to his lips, kissing first one, then the other. I can't offer you wealth or position. The life ahead won't be easy. I don't want easy, she told him. I want real, I want you. His control broke then, and he gathered her into his arms, his kiss deep and passionate. Olivia responded in kind, all hesitation gone as she gave herself fully to this man who had risked everything for her. Later, as they lay tangled together in the soft darkness, Olivia traced the scar on Press's jaw with gentle fingers. Where will we go? She asked drowsily. After Canada, I mean. Press pulled her closer, his breath warm against her hair. Wherever we want, California perhaps, or Oregon. Somewhere we can build something of our own. A home, he smiled against her temple. Yes, a home. And as Olivia drifted towards sleep in her husband's arms, she thought of the frightened bride who had hidden her face at the dance just days ago, and how that moment of fear had led her, impossibly, to the greatest freedom she had ever known.